I'm going to stop recording myself taking notes actually, because this will be loads for Dama to edit. So hello guys, I'm Olivia and I'm your host today of the podcast Panic and Me. I'm just talking a little bit today about study skills, just about kind of how I've got through exams, how I've got into Cambridge, as kind of, studying is really what I know how to do best, sadly. Dama will probably do a similar podcast soon for creatives and people doing more creative degrees. So this one is more aimed at kind of A-level students or degree students who, do a similar subject to mine. So kind of psychology, history, biology, things like that. More, maybe traditional academic subjects. And Dama will do something for those of you who are doing something a little bit more creative and artistic, hopefully in a future podcast. And also I have so many tips. So if this is something that you guys like, I'm happy to do more of these. So just let us know. So my first, if I keep looking to my side, just because I got a few notes. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the rule of 8. So this is something that I picked up from Ibsmo, who's a really popular ex-Cambridge, or he's a Cambridge graduate now. He's now doing, I think, a master's at Oxford. Something that I picked up from his videos a long time ago. And the rule of 8 is the idea of sleeping for 8 hours, studying for 8 hours, and then everything else needs to fit into the other kind of 8 hours of your day, so eating, relaxing, and all of that. I think a really important point to make about the rule of 8 is that it can be really, really effective. But only for a short time before exams. I wouldn't recommend doing it any more than kind of like 2 months, for like 2 months or something on the run up to your exams, because it can be very, very exhausting. And from my perspective, I didn't do 8 hours every single day for 2 months. That would be absolutely crazy. I took Wednesday afternoons and Sundays off, I think. And I wasn't always perfect. Sometimes I missed an hour here and I missed an hour there. So it's just about, getting as close to kind of having a goal. But we always talk on this podcast about how important it is to be kind to yourself. So if you set yourself a target of like 8 hours and you make 6 or 7, be happy that you made 6 or 7. The rule of 8 is like reaching for the stars and falling on the moon. I don't know if you guys have heard of that quote before, but it's like, if you reach 8 hours, that's absolutely incredible. But if you reach 6 or 7, that's okay too. Sometimes it's better to like aim for a little bit more. And the 8 hours of sleep is really, really important. So making sure that you sleep enough and making sure that in those extra 8 hours, you're in those 8 hours that you aren't working, you're doing stuff that is enjoyable, and you're eating, nutritious meals, and things like that. And that's okay. So the kind of second method is what I call the 3-layer method. I can't remember where I picked this up, but I think it's in a book somewhere that I read in the sixth form, and it's something that I've done since A-levels, and I do now, and I think is really, really effective. So basically, it's the idea of studying in 3 layers. So kind of like 3 or 4 months before my exams, I'll do layer 1. And layer 1 is where I dedicate loads of time to a topic. I'll read loads, I'll watch loads, I'll really, really try to understand the topic between kind of like 4 months and 2 months before exams. And I'll like work really, really hard, get an in-depth, enjoy it. And then so this all has to be scheduled, otherwise it can go wrong. It's kind of 2 to 4 months doing that like really in-depth, enjoyable layer. Then doing like layer 2, which is more like just trying to kind of memorize your topics and things like that. So trying to remember, basic things. And you can start doing like essay questions and things like that, and we'll come to that later in the video. And then the last layer, which is from like about 2 weeks to 1 week before exams or something. So the last, 2 or 3 weeks of before exams, you just focus on just memorizing as many last minute facts as you can. So at that point, if you haven't understood something and you've done the other 2 layers, you're probably not going to understand it. So just try to remember keywords and just, so that if it comes up, you can at least scrape some marks from the topic. So you kind of revise in these 3 layers, and it's really, really effective because it takes into account kind of like psychology of memory and things like that. It's a really good method. And then my third tip, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is use practice questions, write practice essays. And I know this is a really common piece of advice, but what people don't realise, or what people do, is they don't start doing exams or they don't start doing questions until they literally feel like they can answer it right perfectly. Where actually the most effective way to do to do like practice questions is do it when you don't know the topic very well. Try to answer a 6 marker on like gene expression when you think you can get like 3 marks, and then when you're marking it, you'll pick up you learn a lot more by what you do wrong. Honestly, your study sessions will be so much better if you're just trying to read. Honestly, if you're just reading over a text over and over again, you are wasting your own time and your own energy. It feels like you're doing something, but you're not. Psychology says that. It's better to be doing what we call active recall things. So flashcards, talking to your friend, or doing practice questions, practice essays as much as possible, as early as possible. So before you're fully 100% comfortable with the topic. And then lastly, this tip is especially helpful for people like me who have dyslexia or a similar learning difference. But it can be helpful actually for anyone. I introduced Dama to it a few weeks ago, and she's not dyslexic, but she found it really, really helpful too. So when you've written an essay, when you're trying to proofread it on Word, there's a text-to-speech option. So what you do is you press the text-to-speech option and you listen to your essay, and it will tell you, you can hear the grammatical mistakes you've made or the things you've spelt wrong, and it's also just another way to cement it in your brain. If you insist on rereading information, although it's not the most effective way to revise, but if you really want to, then a good way to do that might be to kind of play the text-to-speech software while also reading along, so that at least you're seeing the information and hearing it. So your brain has kind of 2 ways that it can try to encode it into your brain and remember it. And also kind of like another option is the dictation option. So on Word, there is also like a dictation, icon. And that basically means you can speak your essays. I know that might sound really, really odd. And when I was first told to do that, when I first got my dyslexia diagnosis, I was like, that's so strange. But actually, it's really, really good. You just speak out loud what you want, to be typed on the screen, and it really, really speeds you up. And you can kind of do that with like anything. If you're trying to do like an active recall task, you can, think, what can I remember about like, I don't know, plant biology, and just speak everything you remember. And then when you look back at the textbook, you can fill out what you have forgotten. And that's, saves time than having to write it down all the time. So, you can get creative with those 2 functions. But I think those are kind of like 4 of my first tips. But like I say, I have lots of other tips if this is something that you guys find helpful or interesting. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you have a lovely day. And we'll have Damon join us back for the next podcast. Thank you. Bye.